So welcome to Limerick City and County Council's CityxChange Storytelling Workshop, which is exploring the potential for energy communities in Limerick's Georgian neighbourhood. I'm Helena Fitzgerald. I work as a researcher at University of Limerick, and I coordinate the university's input into Positive City Exchange, which is a Horizon 2020 research and innovation project. So this evening, we're going to use this thing called a storytelling kind of format for, just to arrange our discussion. And the idea is after an introduction by Pat Stevens of Limerick Energy Agency, who's one of the project partners, that we move on to hear 3 stories about energy communities from Ariane Lelieveld, who is joining us from Rotterdam. And Ariane was a founding member of the Breakout Energy Cooperative, which is an urban-based energy cooperative in Rotterdam. Then we're going to hear from JP Prendergast, who is the chairman or chairperson of Claremorris and Western District Energy Co-op. And I think, if I'm right, JP, that you got some really good news earlier this week about a renewable energy project that you've been planning in Claremorris.
Yeah. Good. It was an exciting week, Helena, in fairness. So yeah, it's been good.
Really looking forward to hearing more about that and the development of that. And then finally, we're going to hear from Cormac Walsh, who is the CEO of Energy Cooperatives Ireland. And they're not-for-profit who support communities to create energy cooperatives. And they're linked in with ICOS, which is the kind of umbrella group for energy cooperatives in Ireland. And of course, there's a huge history of the cooperative movement in Ireland to build upon. So energy cooperatives are one of the legal entities that energy communities can adopt. So after we hear the stories, we're then going to split up into Zoom rooms. So each of the contributors, Ariane, JP and Cormac, they'll each go into a Zoom room and they'll be accompanied by a host from Limerick City and County Council. So I'm just looking, I think we've got Pat will be, or no, Rosie Webb, Sinead Torrican and Garode Kerins, who are project partners in Limerick City and County Council, will host those conversations in the breakout rooms. After 10 minutes, I think Zoom will automatically kick everyone back out into the main session and we'll reform into a new, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep everyone in the room and I'm just going to move Ariane, JP and Cormac. That's the most efficient way to do it. So after 20 minutes of conversation, we're going to rejoin the main session and maybe share the main points. So there'll need to be a rapporteur from each room kind of appointed. And at the very end, we're going to talk about maybe the next steps for the project and for forming energy communities in Limerick. And we're aiming to end sharply at 7:30. So I thought I would show a picture of Limerick. It's, when we do all these online events, it's very difficult sometimes to imagine where we're actually talking about. And this is a very famous crescent, which is part of the Georgian city developed in late 1700s in Limerick. And it's probably worth pointing out that if you look closely at the footpaths here, you can see these kind of square openings, which are actually coal holes, which were built into the footpaths and gave access to brick vaults beneath the city. And they were used to store this carbon-based fuel, which was then burned in the fireplaces and the smoke pouring out from the chimneys. So they were all part of the energy infrastructure of the Georgian city. And in a way, with the changes that are coming down in terms of decarbonising energy, the energy communities are part of the new infrastructure that we need to form in Limerick. So I think I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and I'm going to invite Pat to join me in conversation. I wonder how I can speaker view. Yeah, we'll change the speaker view. So Pat Stevens, are you there? Can you unmute? Yeah.
I'm fine, Helena. Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
I don't have a PowerPoint. I'll just give some overview of the project, and Its evolution, its origins, as some of you may already know, we have been looking at community energy and the concept of looking at the energy requirements of the city and the county for some years now, probably going back about 10 years or more. In our overall strategy, our purpose is really to try to meet the needs, the energy requirements of the city and the county from within our own resources, or at least perhaps from regional resources, so that we can transition to a low carbon future. Our goal is essentially one of meeting our economic and social needs with a low carbon footprint, and also being able to decarbonize our economic activity. We want to be able to essentially create wealth without consuming carbon and meet the needs of society in the same way. That's broad brushstroke, the type of goals we've had for some time, and those goals are already written into the existing city and county development plans. They are written into energy and emissions balances, and indeed the Sustainable Energy and Climate Action Plan, which we wrote back in 2016, and then coincidentally, a year later, we were asked to participate in the development of a European project, which is this project, which essentially wanted to try and create a positive energy balance. Now, those of you who studied physics will automatically know what a precarious prospect that is, but we have engaged on it. We know that renewable energy generation and the concept of being self-sufficient in an urban environment, particularly decarbonizing that self-sufficiency, is really one of the jewels in the crown. It's much easier to try to achieve what we're attempting to do in a green field or in a rural environment, but in an urban environment, there are significant issues that have to be addressed. I'd be very interested to hear the comments of the contributors this afternoon on what they want to do. But what we're going to do is we're going to establish urban-based renewable energy technologies. Those will be comprised of building integrated, e-mobility assets, and also an independent renewable energy asset. And these assets will be essentially community owned. The ownership, as I say, will be owned locally, and the energy we will hope to do is demonstrate how that is traded locally. So we have a lot to cover in the project. An awful lot has changed in the landscape at both European and national level. And of course, some of you will already be aware that a renewable electricity support scheme has been launched. We had some input into that, into the design of that, and into the discussions around export capacity and community scales, that type of thing. We have established relationships, communications with the community regulating utilities, and we have partners with ESB Networks and ESB Innovation and Empower.
Could you maybe just kind of talk a bit more about how we've got this kind of structured approach? So we're working from maybe working with a small group of buildings that cooperate around energy and try and incorporate more renewables and retrofits, etc., to achieve this energy balance of generating more energy than they consume, and then connecting those to energy blocks and then to the city. But why are energy communities so important in this?
Energy communities is a growing phenomena across Europe. It has happened organically, and it happened principally because of the crash in the cost of photovoltaic panels. That's one of the biggest things. Also, it has happened with the engagement of small landholders in urban conurbations in rural areas who actually got involved, particularly in continental areas, Holland, Germany, Denmark, where locals got involved in owning renewable energy assets. In some respects, of course, we're largely going back to the future. I mean, most towns, cities would have had renewable energy assets in the past anyway, mainly river assets or even kind of wind assets, which would have been required for operating mills, food mills, other types of mills and factories. So what we're doing now is we're going to try and enable existing buildings to reduce their existing energy intensity. This is particularly difficult for heritage buildings or existing red brick buildings, Georgian buildings, just because of the nature of the buildings, the type of things you can and can't do. But we're going to drastically reduce the energy intensity of the buildings, first of all, by looking at retrofit options. And then we're going to integrate renewable energy technologies such as photovoltaics, air to water heat pumps, perhaps, maybe even types of combined heat and power technologies.
Okay.
And with the mix of the consumption figures and then the production figures, we know that in the buildings alone, we're highly unlikely to, well, we know for a fact, we're not going to get to a positive balance. But together with the independent renewable energy generation that we're also establishing in the river beside the city, that the output from the independent turbine and possibly even solar on that adjacent site, taken together, those things will contribute to creating a positive energy block in a city block. What we'll do then after that is we want to replicate that to a second block and a third block. And the lessons we learn will carry on throughout the city. The ultimate, I suppose, is going to be an appreciation for the city energy consumption and the rural energy generation and the dependence and independence of both economically and from a social point of view. But from a specifically urban energy, positive energy block point of view, we are tasked with meeting the energy needs of a specific block in the city by reducing its energy intensity, integrating renewables into the buildings, and then the gap between what we've providing locally in the buildings and the total consumption will be met by a specific targeted energy generation asset, the hydro. And those things will take all together to make the block a positive energy block.
So we know this is a research and innovation project, so it's not going to be easy, but the active stage of the project runs until the end of October 2021. So what are we hoping to have achieved by then in terms of energy communities and prosumer groups?
So between now and then, we're going to have at least 5 buildings that will be positive. We will have retrofit programs going on. There'll be after the first 5 buildings, those 5 buildings will participate in the community energy grid by having service level units, we're calling them. They're essentially meters that will enable those buildings to be part of a community energy grid. After those first 5 buildings, we'll have another 20 buildings. So we'll be looking at up to about 25 buildings in our project by 2023. By 2021, we'll also have a demonstrator renewable energy project in the river, providing electricity generation, and that will expand out to a full-scale renewable energy generation station by 2023 over the following 2 years. And in the buildings, we will have, as I said, integrated renewables in the form of photovoltaics and heat pumps.
So really, I think the key message here is that, you know, given the building stock we're dealing with in the Georgian city, that we need the buildings to cooperate so that they can achieve this, you know, zero carbon emissions and positive energy status.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a fantastic foundation and introduction to the project at Pat. So thank you for that. And I'm going to move on now to speak to Ariane, who's joining us from Rotterdam, and hopefully we'll talk about her experience of energy communities there. Hi, Ariane.
Good evening. Hello.
Hi. So yeah, do you want to tell me a bit about the Bleefstrom project and how it got going and what you've been doing?
Yeah. I will start first a little story from the beginning, because it's important to, in the perspective from the history where we started. It was in 2010 in Holland. Maybe whole Europe was a crisis. A lot of people lost their job. So am I. I'm an architect. I lost my job, and I was sitting at home without work, and I was the last part in my last job was to think about how become buildings energy efficient. So that's how I came out in my in sitting at home, and I found really quickly out that if you want my dream was to be self-sustainable. But I'm living in a big apartment complex in Rotterdam, close to the city center. And I found out, okay, if you want this, I cannot do it myself. I need my neighbors. But my direct neighbors in the same complex, it's really complex. Really, the process to everyone get involved by the same opinion, it's really a complex situation. So what I did, I was looking in my neighborhood for other people who has the same dream to become sustainable, self-sustainable, want to have sunroofs, and so on. And I found two more people in my neighbor, and so we started a meeting, a big meeting in a big church, and there came 80 people together. And from those 80 people, we started a small group from 10 people who has the same dream to become. Our first slogan was, we do it ourselves. We want to be independent from the big energy companies. We don't want to be involved with them. We will organize ourselves. We want to be, we want to discuss from whom are the commons? Who can own them and who can harvest them? And the typical from Rotterdam is that we have a lot of flat roofs. My building has a big roof where we can harvest a lot of energy from the sun. So that was the start. That was the beginning. But to start, we were very pioneering. So finally, we had the first roof because we found a focus, not to organize a lot of people, but to organize one roof, just to have an example that it can be a good solution, and it's nice to be involved with a lot of neighborhoods in the same project. So we spoke with the municipality of Rotterdam, and they gave us one roof from a small sport complex, a sport hall.
Okay.
And in that roof, it was our first sunroof, where we make parts of kind of obligations where you can invest as a neighbor.
So what I can do, if you want, Ariane, is I can just show the website of the Energy Cooperative and just show some pictures. I'll just share my screen, and it might just give people a better idea.
Yeah, and important is to know that for example, in the home, all the pictures, for example, it's not maybe really interesting, but for example, these two people, they are one of the members. You understand? Everyone on the if you go to the homepage, it's my dog.
Okay.
For example, so if you scroll down, it's my daughter. So everybody.
Oh, okay.
This girl is my daughter and her friend. So everyone is. We are making our own with cooperating everyone in the family, with the dogs. Everyone is reckonable. You understand?
Yeah. So, and you've also, like, it's very obvious from this website that you've got a very kind of positive approach. Your kind of tagline says "Energy for Optimists."
Yeah, because I will understand. Our neighborhood is called Blijdorp. Blijdorp, if you translate it in English, it's called a village with a lot of happy village. Mm-hmm. Actually, that's the translation. So the company, what we called is Blijstroom. And Blijstroom, it's called, Blij is meaning happy, and stroom is energy. So it was I found it out. So everybody recognized the name in the neighborhoods, you understand? Yeah. Happy people, happy village, happy energy. And it's very reckonable and very, we did all ourselves, you understand?
So do you think, well, I don't want to answer the question, but in terms of what motivated people to take part, is it the idea of doing something positive to combat climate change, or what were the motivators for people?
Actually, that's also the motivation. We have, by coincidence, we have a very typical name, Happy Village, but we also think that sustainable and to change the world is changing, it also can be something positive. So we want to bring a positivity to the world, not only negative. Okay, it costs money. You have to invest. It's expensive. Not everybody has this money also, but we want to show that reorganize yourself in a new construction. It can be very positive things and very social things. It's not only the money, but it's very social. It's a community. You are building a community. That's what I think. It's building a new community around a small subject, energy.
Yeah. So just to kind of, so I understand, you identify roofs, flat roofs which aren't used, and then you put solar panels on them.
Yeah.
And the cooperative members purchase the solar panels or part of the solar panel.
Yeah.
So what happens then? So the energy is generated, and what's the benefit, or what is there money generated? What do you do?
Yeah, it's money. What we count out is that we got the roof for 15 years. So actually, if you are involved with the project, you buy your energy for 15 years in the future. Okay. With a special tariff, because in Holland we have you have the energy cost and you have the energy tax. Mm-hmm. And the government of Holland gives to people who are involved with the postcode rows. We have postcodes here. You also have a postcode. So every member of the energy corporation has to live inside the energy postcode.
Okay.
So to be one of the members, it's one of the main important thing. You can, if you move, you have to sell your solar obligations.
Okay. So that's interesting. And so is the kind of the business model, I suppose, of the cooperative, is that a state, kind of a national model, or is it something you develop? It's national.
Yeah, we are because we are one of the first we have a lot of knowledge.
Okay.
Our first, how do you call it in English?
Prototype?
No. Yeah, it's our chairman.
Oh, yes.
He is now specialized to help because he officially is an architect.
Okay.
But because his knowledge now is to unlocking this knowledge to other people in Rotterdam,
Okay.
to help them.
Yeah, that's.
And he's
okay.
paid by the municipality of Rotterdam.
Okay. So as well as putting solar panels on buildings, does the Energy Cooperative do anything else?
At this moment, not. We finally this year, last September, in the 5th of September, we opened our 4th roof. But we are looking forward. At first, the chairman of Blijstroom, he isn't chairman anymore, but now he has a job as to share this knowledge to other people in Rotterdam. So that's more, and he is also organizing a platform. I've heard about a paraplu organization over Rotterdam to organize more energy corporations.
Okay.
To help them and to organize. The most important is to know in Holland is the energy market started in Holland with companies owned by the municipalities.
Okay.
And in 2000 they separated it. You have companies who produce energy, who transport energy, and who sell the energy. And Blijstroom is just the producer of energy. And we are not selling, we are, and also not, wait a minute, I have to look for a word. I have here my translator.
That's okay.
A supplier. We are not supplier. We are working together with a supplier of energy. So before it was just one company, and now we have transportation, produce, and suppliers. And Blijstroom is not a supplier, but Blijstroom is a producer of energy.
Okay.
And we were working together with a supplier, but for us, for the members, it's better to have to supply ourselves, because the money stays closer to us. So now the platform, it will be, I think it will be a supplier organization. So then that the other energy corporation of Rotterdam, we have our own supply.
Okay.
You understand why I'm talking?
Yeah, I think so. So you've got a local, a kind of an umbrella body that organizes local supply of locally renewable power, which of course is going back to Pat's point, the energy can be local. And instead of money leaving your area to go to some oil-based power generation, you're keeping all the money in your economy. Okay, that's really interesting. So we're going to have to wind up, I think, but one last question is, do you have any advice for the people of Limerick about how they should start to organize around energy the way you have in Holland? Yeah,
it's a pity that I didn't can go to Limerick to see, because I think it's very interesting. For example, what you told about the street, that there are some holes in the street. That's very interesting. To start it with this. You told me that there are just there are corporations, but just in urban, not in the urban areas, but more in the rural areas.
Yeah, there are quite a few successful energy cooperatives in more rural or small town locations. So it's it's quite innovative really to try and do this in an urban setting. But I think we have to try.
Yeah. What's the important is that people understand. That's how I became to this idea. That I understand, because my dream was to be self-sustainable in a big building complex. But I count very quickly that if I have my own sun panels, it's not enough. I need more. I need more energy from other places.
Yeah.
Because my second dream was that I want to know where my energy comes from.
Yeah.
You understand? There is always an energy mix, but the energy mix I feel very voor de gek houden. What's the
fortunate?
I feel fooled.
Oh, okay.
About the energy mix.
Yeah.
They say that's green, but finally it's not green. You understand?
Yeah. So it's one way of knowing where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think if there are people who has this feeling, you can. I think there is a opportunity for these people to help them to make their own energy company.
Yeah.
And what we are doing now in Holland, what I'm doing, but my problem is now that I'm working also because the municipality of Rotterdam, they ask me to help them. You understand?
Yes.
Because I'm good. I became good. Originally I'm an architect, but I came good to building communities.
Yeah.
So now I'm helping them. But in my own neighborhood where I live, I want to have the energy stored for the times that we don't have the sun energy.
Yeah.
So
that's energy storage.
Yeah, that's our new step.
Okay, that's really interesting. Look, Ariane, I'm going to have to move on and hear from JP and his story. But thanks very much for telling us about Leestrom. And I'm so disappointed you couldn't make it to Limerick in person. And maybe that's something that can happen in the future.
Yeah, maybe. we will see.
Thanks a million.
Yeah.
JP,
bye-bye.
are you unmuted?
Yeah, I am. Can you hear me okay, Nina?
Yeah, perfect. That's great. So again, thanks for joining us. And you're the chairperson of Claremorris and Western Energy Cooperative. Do you want to maybe talk to us about well, maybe your recent news, because that's really fantastic news, and then maybe go back to talk about how it all started and how people became involved? Sure,
Leah, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. It's funny, it's small circles. I was only a while ago, I was talking to Pat on another call. So we can tell who's doing all the hard work in Limerick these days, Pat, in fairness to you. In Cormac, we've worked with before, and it's good to see everyone. Back onto our project started about four to 5 years ago. About 7 of us got together within our town of Claremorris. So we're in the west of Ireland, kind of northwestish, South Mayo, North Galway kind of location. What we wanted to do was to see, could we, by any chance, look at some renewable projects for our town. There was kind of a passive approach in our neighbourhood that, renewables probably weren't being seen as a feasible option. So we pulled together 7 people within the town, and I'm only one of the 7. And in fairness to the guys like Pat Neary and Richard Finn and Stella Luan, and I keep naming these people because they deserve to be named for the amount of work they put into this, including Phelan Murray. We initially looked ironically at aerobic digestion. We looked at aerobic digestion whereby we want to look to see, could society or communities deal with their own, I suppose, brown wealth, as we call it, which was their food waste. And we were looking with Gas Networks Ireland to win an innovation fund to go around to communities and show what anaerobic digestion was about and how communities could take ownership of their own waste, and potentially from waste to energy, how that could generate a number of possibilities. But one day I was down in Nina. I was introduced to an infamous guy called John Fogarty, I was locked in a room with John for about an hour, where he continued to tell me about the possibilities of elements for communities such as solar, and particularly solar power. The issue here in Ireland was that where my day job is completely different to what I do here with the co-op, a lot of the big projects initially were bypassed by communities. They weren't given the chance to be involved in big projects. So when the wind came in, there was no community real pot there, or there was no opportunity for communities to get involved in generation. However, after speaking with John, we noticed that there was an opportunity that maybe communities could get involved in solar, and we went on this, I suppose, road of connections to grid, which was the first step for us in Ireland here to allow us to get kind of established for power generation onto the main grid in Ireland. I still remember the day I went back to Claremorris and we called a meeting, and everyone else was around the table. I explained what solar was all about, and they looked at me going, really? You know, what's this about? A complete unknown, but you know, something, hell, let's go and keep them happy and keep going. So what we did was we proceeded with the project itself. We would have at that stage looked to, we would have looked at probably two abilities at the time. I'll have to stay here for a minute. We'd have to look at.
Can we interrupt it and retake it up after the next speaker?
Guys, we've got a problem here with the building. Actually, it's a fire escape. We need to get out for a second. Can I come back in after maybe Cormac? Would that be possible?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we need to get out of here because we've been moved out here for fire purpose reasons. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll ring you back in 2 minutes. Sorry. No problem.
We know it's live now anyway, Helena.
That's a first. Okay, so Cormac, waiting in the wings.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect, that's great. My picture is gone for some reason, I'm not too sure why, but
so Cormac, look, you're the kind of chairperson of Energy Cooperatives Ireland, and really, I suppose I'd like you to talk about a bit more about how you help communities to form legal entities so that they can develop energy projects.
Okay, well, first of all, a bit like Adrienne, we started in 2010, and again, some of the similar reasons why we wanted to make a difference. So we set up public meetings, and the first people to come to one of our meetings was our first cooperative in the Aran Islands. Their success story is well documented now at this stage. They have succeeded in getting over 70% of their entire building stock, including homes, community halls, hostels, hotels, etc., all retrofitted to a very high standard. They also have gone on to now looking to have a 2.2 megawatt wind turbine. And they are involved in about 4 EU funded projects, research projects. So we spent many years trying to sort of interact with governments, departments, the media, everyone to try and build up a bit of momentum behind communities doing all of this type of work. And over a period of time, we've been successful. So we've moved on to help create another one in Claremorris through JP and Pat Neary, and who've done a great job. But also then we've moved on to another co-op down in Kerry, based in Tralee. And each one of these co-ops, by the way, are doing kind of different things. So that's the great thing about it. That's been followed by, the latest one is Valentia Island, and they're looking to be Ireland's first hydrogen community, producing and consuming their own hydrogen. But going back to another one, and it's very interesting because what we're talking about tonight is Limerick, and it being an urban city. So we set up another one in Galway about 2 years ago, the Galway Energy Cooperative. And they're involved at the moment in some EU projects as well. But again, they with guidance, have partnered up with key stakeholders in the area. So they've partnered up with NUIG, Galway City Council, and the Arts Council, and a whole variety of different organisations. So they're a very proactive energy cooperative that we would direct people who are interested in this from an urban perspective to look at and to maybe interact with.
Yeah, that sounds really great. So what you're saying is that that each of these cooperatives have responded to the particular opportunities of their location, so that, you know, if there was an energy cooperative or an energy community in Limerick, that likewise that they, you know, they would get to make decisions which best suited their particular context and mix of buildings and renewable opportunities.
Well, that's exactly it. And I mean, again, we would be suggesting that any co-op that we look to help create would become part of an SEC program, which is all good networking stuff. But the beauty about it is that you are looking at, if you had two cooperatives 10 kilometers away from each other, they could be looking at totally different types of projects. And that boils down to the type of people within the group and the opportunities that the area may well provide.
So moving on then, because it sounds very interesting that all of these projects have secured funding, and I'd imagine that's quite sizable funding from EU and national programs. Could you talk about the importance of being a legal entity to unlock the gates to that?
Okay, well, it's pretty much crucial because when we started this in 2010, we thought that it'd be much quicker. It would be everybody would want to be doing this, and we would then get support from governments, from government departments, from quangos of one sort or another, and we weren't getting it, and we wondered why. So that's why we centered on the fact that it's critically important for the community group to be a legal entity, because if you're sitting down across the table from the ESB or from the department or any government agency, you know what I mean, they will do a little bit of a background check on you. The beauty about a cooperative is that you are now a legal entity that has rules and regulations to follow. You have responsibilities, so you should hold monthly meetings that are open to the public. You have obligations to be audited every 12 months, and the board needs to be reappointed every 12 months also. So you've got all these rules and regulations, but genuinely it means that you can then interact with all of those type of agencies that I've outlined. And
you can become a serious player then.
And then you can become an equal player across the table from somebody, because the fear is that if you're only 5 of us who are sitting around a table who meet a few nights a month in a pub, you know, the legal entity across the table from you will just look at you and say, look, if I sign something with you, you can just walk away and we'll never hear of you again. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? So it has got to be that kind of institution that others can then interact with.
Yeah. And is that quite a hurdle for communities then? So if you have a group of people like Ariane and her neighbours who wanted to develop a project, is it quite off-putting? Has that been your experience?
Yeah, it is, and it has been. The difficulty in Ireland is that we haven't, up until now, we haven't had sort of direction from governments to implement all of this. So previously, people were wandering around with blindfolds, not knowing what direction to go in, put all their energies into one direction and nothing could happen. So what we have done is we have basically brought the whole process down to an easy to understand, easy to implement process. So as you've got a roadmap effectively. So you've now got aims and objectives within the cooperative, and you now have a legal entity. and then you are able to pursue those much, much clearer than in the past. So without that clear direction or that clarity, a lot of these community groups will fall apart.
Yeah, so I think this idea of having a roadmap and a clear plan of action that's is cumulative, that accumulates over time to something meaningful is really important. And that's kind of where the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland come in, isn't it? In developing these sustainable energy communities. But I'm just wondering, back to kind of forming this legal entity, like, are there costs associated with forming a legal entity?
Well, yes, there are, and I mean, and therefore we do promote that people understand that they need to get shareholder money in to begin to put this something around into their pot. So shares are, we suggest, you know, anything from 25 euros, you know what I mean, to 100. It depends on the co-op and the people in it, but they need to have access. They need to become business people. At least view it in that sense, that it's got to wash its own face. There are costs involved in setting it up. ICOS, who we work hand in glove with, and for those who don't know ICOS are the governing body effectively for agricultural cooperatives. They have 125 years history behind them in relation to forming co-ops and the rules and regulations, etc., etc. So, but ICOS do charge because they have to. So it would cost a community group around between 650 to 700 euros just to form the cooperative. The work that we do with the cooperative, we don't charge for. And the reason for that is that we are involved in other EU-funded projects, research projects, and we take the monies from that, and then we do this other work for free. So that's how we operate. But yes, the community group need to understand that there are costs involved in keeping it going.
But then costs can also indicate commitment, can't they?
Yes,
yeah.
It's very important actually that they do. An individual does show that commitment.
Yeah.
Because it's a long-term project. It is not like 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 of us come together with land, and we've thrown some seeds in the ground, and guess what, next year we've got a crop that we can sell. This is a much longer term project. Adrienne has outlined how difficult these things can be. It's the same in Holland, it's the same here.
Yeah.
So it takes commitment, it takes persistence.
Okay, so I think I've just noticed that JP has survived.
Well done, JP.
So I might just go back to JP briefly, maybe for kind of 2 or 3 minutes, just so he can describe his project and you know, what grant they were awarded before we split into the smaller rooms. Welcome back.
First of all, thank you, Helena. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfectly.
I'm in a lobby now, so if you hear noise in the background, if there's a party or something going on, ignore that. We had a fire exit there, so it's the first time we've experienced that, and be the receiver of it. Just to follow on from what we said was, we kind of looked at solar as being the project for us once we kicked into play here. And what we actually had done was we had met with Cormac, funny enough, and we had looked at setting up a co-op at the time, and then we further went on to ICOS to set up the entity. The biggest issue we had was that we needed to generate a revenue for the co-op. Because these projects are kind of a long-term project, and medium to long-term, we need to be able to establish kind of an investment pipeline so we could maintain and keep the co-op going. So we got involved in a number of projects, including Interreg at the time, ironically. The purpose of our co-op really was, we have 3 core projects we want to entail in the co-op. One was the solar, 2 was district heating, and is district heating. So we're now in the midst of applying for that district heating project, which is about a 1 megawatt to social housing and communities within our town. But the third part was a group called Community Power. What we did was we set up this entity, allowing communities around Ireland to work together to buy and sell their own power. So what we did as a small group was we were able to obtain and purchase a trading license to compete with the likes of our big electricity suppliers in Ireland. and we're able to pick up that system and place it in every community in Ireland and let them use that as an ability to not only generate the power on site on their locality, but to officially sell it to their own end users at the same time. And any profits that's generated from that stays within that community. So community power is a vehicle, it's a non-for-profit vehicle that allows communities to do this. And it's really important because it's one thing is generating power, but there's groups that can't generate power, but they'd love to be able to sell the power if it was generated rurally into, say, a city location. The good news this week is we went into an auction. So we got into the auction for Res 1, which was a renewable electricity support scheme, and we won. We did a second sister project in Galway. We worked with Temple, the guys down below, as two communities working together to help it across the line. So we would be probably one of the two, actually technically three only 100% community-owned projects in Ireland. One Temple being the wind, and now these two solar projects. So yeah,
how much power do the solar farms
generate? The two solar sites will generate 4 megawatt each. And I think the wind is about a 5 generation. Now that's been up and going for the last 12, 14 years with Temple, so they've been quite established. It's interesting to hear.
What's the area of land that the 4 megawatts takes up?
We normally sound about 5 acres per megawatt was the kind of the benchmark. So about 20 acres in this case for the 4 megawatt. It's interesting to hear. It's interesting to hear Pat's comments on the Limerick project, and I work in UL quite closely with the guys in there, but it's something that feeds into what I suppose Pat is trying to do there, where rural Ireland steps up and tries to support that whole city generation, and maybe allow that interaction, allow that community involvement, working as communities together. So as a cooperative, for us, I think we've been very lucky to get here. We've had a few innovations in between, like we've done a model of our own town. So physically, we've linked a database to every building in our town, so we can generate a map of our town as we start to develop the whole energy generation thing. But as a cooperative, I think we're now in a position to generate an income for the next 15 years. We have a second solar site, which hopefully the same thing will happen, and then invest that into a district heating project for the town. But moreover, I think what we're hoping to be able to do is support other communities and say, look, there's a small pot here. If it works, we'll try and put some money against it, help you off the ground. If it works, pay back the cost.
It sounds amazing. So I suppose my last question, because we are going to have to move on in our format for the evening, is what kind of people are on the kind of management committee of your co-op?
So we have basically, my background is in business myself, but I think Stella is an accountant. Richard's a councillor, actually. We have a councillor on our committee. We have Films and Ray work in local industry. Noel's a project manager, and Pat is everything really from farming upwards. So I think we've a great mix. But now we've 50 members going on to 100 members, so that's now starting to expand, and we're starting to generate subcommittees. The interesting part about it is, and Cormac made that point, there has been times when maybe we've had to go to our local credit union and get loans based on personal guarantees to make this happen. There has been times we've had to go out there and find projects to keep ourselves going. It is a business. It has to be treated as a business. But once you get to a stage of being self-sustained, in the sense that you can generate an income within your organization, it's the saying, money makes money. And you've got a bit of money coming in, you can reinvest it to generate something else and generate something else. And I think for communities, it's a woeful, massive tool, opportunity to move forward, and both for the cities and for rural Ireland to try and regenerate. And it allows community to invest in these projects where maybe institutes wouldn't have the same confidence, but the community would know their town, and they would know the situation, and they would take that risk.
Okay, look, that's been fantastic. So I'm just going to move on to the next part, which is where we go into the breakout rooms. So what we were hoping to do at this stage was really, if the rapporteur of each room could maybe summarize the main points discussed. And I suppose we're trying to kind of see maybe what we can learn about, that would help us create or help create an energy community in Limerick.
Sorry, Helena, can I apologise to Pat and the guys? In the middle of a conversation, my battery went dead in the laptop, so I will touch base with Pat again. My apologies on that, and to Garage.
Yeah, definitely a good one here. So my apologies to everyone in that group.
Okay, we're all held hostage to technology. It fails us from time to time. So, well, who wants to go? Garode or Rosie, or who wants to go first?
Can I just point out one thing? I have to go now because I'm being shouted at here. The one thing I'm noticing is that, and I was at I don't know if any of you were on the Nordic Irish district heating talk yesterday. It was really good. It was held. There was Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Finland. It was fantastic, and they've done district heating projects. They've had huge successes, and they said that the one thing that every district has come back and said that made it work was trust, just trust. And what I'm getting from tonight is this community that already existed, and that, like, if we could address that in Limerick, because as Rosie said, a lot of people are renting, so maybe don't have the same motivation or the same commitment, or if it's a commercial block and that, you know, business owners aren't, again, they're not personally committed to each other or responsible to each other or loyal. So, you know, is there any way we could, like, establish a community? Like, we're at a disadvantage. We don't have a local school or a GA club or a parish that has already set us up as a community. We are all quite different people with parallel interests as opposed to convergent interests. So is that something we could address through events, through social activities or something like that, rather than hitting them with energy projects straight away? You know, is there something else we could get them involved in?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Aoife. So what I'm doing is I'm just recording some of these findings, I suppose, from our discussion, and it'll become a record of the meeting. So I don't know if any of the Limerick City Council people want to come back on that observation. No.
Well, Helena, I guess what I would say is I think maybe we did start from that angle because we know that there's a lot of goodwill about wanting to get the historic Georgian area of the city revitalized. And I think that's really where it started from. But I take that point. I do think it's a point Aoife made, that I think you have to start getting people to meet each other and to begin forming relationships with each other on a sort of wider goal. And we had that discussion in our group, particularly around this idea of, you know, having, I mean, you do have to, there's an educational side of it, but holding events that are in local community halls where you're beginning to get people with maybe a kind of an ethical or moral kind of, you know, maybe reason for joining, you know, that their reasons for joining are probably more important than just saving money, but wanting to do the right thing and maybe trying to kind of, you know, gear it around that sort of thing.
Okay. So any other observations from the discussion?
I presume the landlords, there's no incentive for the landlords. So how do tenants benefit to be in the community?
Okay.
Like, I think CityxChange is for the homeowners and businesses. Is landlords considered a business? I'm not sure. So there's no, I don't think there's a CityxChange grant for, I could be corrected for landlords.
Hey, Pat, would you know that? Is Pat there?
Pat, I don't think Pat's there.
Oh yeah, actually Pat signed. Oh no, he is. He's just muted.
Right. Rosie is working on a number of things for landlords as well, with tax incentives and so on. Part of the project we'll be looking at will be trying to look at an investment model where we are enabling landlords to look at the menu of things that can be done in their buildings, initially from the improvement in energy efficiency in the buildings, but also, of course, the integration of renewables. And we're looking at an investment model that's going to be essentially a mixture of some grant assistance and some maybe green bonds, and then there'll be obviously some money that the landlords themselves are going to have to put up So we're looking at a combination of mixture, and then built into that mixture will be other areas that Rosie has been very active in the area of land use and tax exemptions and stuff like that. So we don't have, and I don't have a definitive answer to that, but just that we are working on an investment model that takes a number of things into consideration, and we're hoping to bring that to building owners in the future.
Pat, can I ask a question?
Of course, please.
We're working with Trinity College on a Horizon 2020 project called Ideas. And effectively it is something that may be of use down to you in Limerick. It is a year in, but the project will actually develop solar that could be put on the side of buildings, on the facade of a building, that then incorporates heat pumps, and through smart technology would then operate all the technology within the building or the home or the apartment. It's very innovative, and it might be something that you could look at teaming up with. The technology will come out at the far end in 2 years' time, and it will be then looked to be trialed, etc., and go into the real world. So it might well be something for you to look at.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, if you can send me on a link and some details, Cormac, we'll definitely take a look. We're open to everything. So
yeah. If you just Google the Ideas project, okay, it'll be there.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, well, I think it's really time to wind it up. So I think it went quite well. I'm really pleased with all the contributions that we got, and I know on probably the last sunny Thursday evening of the summer, it's not surprising that how many 8 people didn't turn up, because well, I'd be with them, I think. So I was just trying to capture, just before we go, kind of what the core, like what's the most important thing for building an energy community. And so I've got that you have to have an actual community, that trust is a core importance, and you need commitment from individuals. Is there anything else I should add to that?
An expertise who've done it.
Yeah.
Like there's expertise on this call here and previous calls. If we could hire them, that'd be great. If Limerick could hire them.
Yeah, like I think we have expertise within the project. You know, we've got our building, you know, our city energy model and everything done. So,
but they have actually done it.
Yeah.
Well, the difficulty is that when you're communicating with a community, you've got to actually have a clear, absolute clear plan that they can walk out of the pub from or the hotel from and actually implement.
Yeah.
You know, and unless it's just a human nature thing,
yeah,
people kind of go. Otherwise, they kind of say, "Oh, well, had a bit of crack, and sure, we had a couple of pints, and sure, that's grand, but sure, we'll take it no further." So unless you can actually unfurl a whole program for them to follow, they won't do it.
Okay. Well, I think that's pretty strong kind of learnings, I suppose, from this. A clear plan, actual community, trust, commitment, and expertise. Yeah.
I think, Helena, it has to address a common core value for the community. I think that whether that's the need for community self-sustainability or self-sufficiency, or whether there's a deep-rooted sense of decarbonisation, it can take a number of different forms, but there must be a core value between everybody as to why they're doing something. And then even with that core value, in addition, there must be a real business model that stands up. Even with all things being met, satisfying your sense of your environmental commitments and everything else, if it doesn't have some path towards financial viability, it's just going to fall down.
What I can tell you is that that you should find at least 3 people with the same values and standards and the same interests, and one of them has the quality, a technical quality, the second a community quality, and the third a business a shareholder, more businessman.
Yeah.
If you put these 3 together, if you what was wrong in the first years with Blijstroom, it was too much people with the same qualities, and that's why it stopped. There was no movement. And finally, there are some people there were 2 members who started, and finally 3 with different qualities. And then you can make a rolling movement.
Absolutely agree, Adrienne. The co-ops that we've actually set up were in, most of them are in rural areas. So they had, for instance, the Aran Islands has a declining population, so has Valentia Island. So that is their motivating reason for doing this type of thing. Like Pat was asking, why are people looking to do this? So
same ambition. And
the same ambitions. So in terms of an urban environment, you've got to try and find what is that gel, that glue that would drive the project forward. And it's harder in an urban area. It is harder.
Yeah. Sure. And find as a municipality from Limerick, be sure that you have one roof with the quality. It's not more owners. It's just simple. Maybe the municipality is the owner, and give it as an experiment to these people to make a business model, local business model. What is the typical local business model for Limerick with all the rules from Ireland, with all the hills what you can find?
Okay.
So just a question there. When everything was up and running, this Michael here, did you hire somebody permanently to support it, to support the community? Any questions or maintenance or any logistics? Was anybody support? Was anybody who Adrian?
The first we had the professional people who make the sun panels on the roof, but the last roof is a special roof. This roof is with people out from the neighbor without a job, without job opportunities, and they got a quick what's the name of this? A quick training.
Okay.
So
a quick education, and they install, without a professional organization, they install the roof, the solar panels.
I think for insurance reasons, we probably can't do that. I'm sure we probably need professionals to install it on a roof and set up electricity grid. But when is everything volunteered, or is there a professional person?
No, it's now the organization Blijstroom is now it's a volunteer company, but it's a volunteer organization. But the people who were install the solar panels,
they're professionals.
They are professional.
That's fine.
It's a professional company. It's everything professional. They are also paid. They got the 5 people. It's also a social project. You understand?
I do. Yes.
Yeah, but it's all professional. And the first share member he was at first he was an architect. He's now professional, and he was a volunteer also. But now he got a professional job from it to unlock more roofs in Rotterdam.
And
In
he's
Rotterdam,
a volunteer. Is he getting paid for it?
He was a volunteer. He was the chairman of Blijstroom, the first chairman from Blijstroom. But now he got a professional job paid by the municipality of Rotterdam. And for example, there is also now a deal with the big school foundation. It's a school from a basic school foundation with more than 60 schools. And the deal is that all the schools get solar panels.
Gosh,
That's brilliant.
that's fantastic.
We should do that here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're 10 minutes over, and I kind of hate being over time. So Cormac, JP, do you have any parting shots before we call this to a close?
Well, I'll just, I'm not sure if JP is still there or not, but I would say that you should be going out to the community with a vision. You know what I mean? And this has to be a much more broader storytelling exercise within the community. But a vision has to be really painted for people that they can buy into. And yes, it may take some years to come to fruition. But like Adrienne, you start with something tangible, with something that they can actually interact with. And then you're getting the people to buy into this project, and then it can grow. And
Yeah.
it will not happen overnight. Sorry, but it won't. None of it, these things will, but with commitment and with the right people, like Adrienne said,
I think
then you've got something going. Like JP has achieved.
What we say in Holland, maybe alone you go quicker, but together you go further.
Yeah.
So maybe together with more people, it's going more slowly, but finally you're going.
I think
more in the future.
I think it's perseverance. It's believing in the team. Treat it as a business, and perseverance. And they're going to have bad days. You're going to have bad months. But if you can remain focused on the end goal.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's absolutely anything is possible, and it's the people around you that makes that happen. And it's as basic as that, I think.
Okay, look, that's really, really valuable. So thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to stop sharing so we can have one final goodbye. Do people mind if I just take a picture before we go? Because I'll take a screen grab of all the happy faces. Brilliant. Sinead, you've got to turn your camera on. Hello. Okay. So,
on there quick.
Thanks everyone for taking part. Really appreciate your contributions.
Thank you.
Great. Well done, Helena.
Yeah, hopefully we'll talk again soon.
No problem.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.